Hello and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. I'm Kevin Castley. Thanks for being here tonight. Tonight, this is going to be a much shorter stream in contrast to last night's stream, which you all should go and check out, in which we had a full panel on. We had the Anthonys, we had Henry, we had Ray Murasame, and we had Jaeger DePeto. It was a great evening. We talked about some very disturbing stuff, some new revelations out from the Trump administration. However, it was great to stream with them. Tonight, I'm doing this solo. It's going to be a lot shorter. I only have one thing to talk about tonight, and that is that I was right. I called it. I said all the way back in March of this year, I tweeted out saying how Donald Trump's nickname for Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, was one of the worst nicknames I had ever seen. It was meek and weak. It was dilute. It was not potent. And we have an article out now in the Washington Post indicating that Donald Trump has finally realized that Sleepy Joe just doesn't have the luster that some of his old nicknames used to. That his nickname game is kind of washed up and he's got a lot of regret. And so I'm going to show you essentially the tweet here. We're not going to go into the full article or anything. I'm pretty busy tonight, but we're going to take a look at it, the tweet right here. So my friend Mike, progressive apostate, and for whatever reason right now, my laptop, I got to get my laptop fixed at some point this week. I can't even see his profile picture here. It's just this weird desktop Twitter error or something. I'm not sure. I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to this stuff. So he tweeted at me today and said, at Kevin Castley, you were right on this one. And then he's got here the link to it. Costa reports, Robert Costa. Quote, Trump has been asking advisors if he should stick with his current nickname for Biden, Sleepy Joe, or try to coin another moniker, such as Swampy Joe or Creepy Joe. The president is not convinced that Sleepy Joe is particularly damaging. It took him long enough. Not particularly damaging. Sleepy Joe? Really? I mean, that's a bad nickname. If your kid comes up with, if your 6-year-old kid comes up with a nickname, Sleepy, you're going to say, oh, come on, you can do better than that. If he's like trying to make up nicknames for some bully or something, just be like, you can do better than that, kid. I mean, this is from Trump. It's the one thing that, well, there are several things I give Trump credit for, but the thing that I give him the most credit for, even though, of course, obviously, him pulling out of the Iran deal is a lot more important, but of course, he's been weak on other areas when it comes to Iran. At least with the nicknames, you could say he's been on point. His nicknames have been potent. Well, coming from Trump, Sleepy Joe is even worse. Because if it's some 6-year-old kid, he's just starting out. You say, well, he'll grow up. He'll come up with great nicknames one day, right? He's got a lot of potential. Donald Trump's been on a downward trajectory. If we think back to 2016, if we think back to 2015, and we think back to the days of low energy Jeb, I like Jeb Bush. I would definitely 100% prefer Jeb Bush to be president right now. But the branding, the marketing, the nicknamery, it was in Trump's favor. He knew the game. And Jeb couldn't even hope to keep up. He didn't even know what hit him. And by the time he finally tried to make a comeback, a recovery, after he got hit by low energy Jeb time and time again, he changed his campaign slogan from Jeb 2016 to Jeb 2016. He put an exclamation mark on it, indicating to everybody, oh yeah, Trump got under his skin, the low energy thing. He's trying to show us he's not low energy. Oh, it was so effective. It was such a good nickname. See, I wish that like the neocons and the Hawks out there could have this kind of nickname game. It sucks that that ground was yielded. It was forfeited to our opponents. We have to step it up. The Hawk Gang's got to get lit when it comes to the memes and the nicknames. So here's the deal. So Donald Trump, he had Little Marco. Now, Little Marco, that's not particularly clever or anything, but it was effective to the extent that it did work. He also, of course, had what was it, Loser Rosie O'Donnell. He had a lot of like goofy ones and everything, but some of his nicknames were really good. One for 38 Kasich was kind of a flop. Not because it wasn't in spirit a good nickname. I mean, I called Cenk Uygur 6% Cenk. The problem with 1 for 38 Kasich, the reason why my nickname for Cenk 6% Cenk is better than Trump's 1 for 38 Kasich was that within like a week he was like 1 for 39 or 1 for 40 Kasich. Like he only ever won one state. Whereas for Cenk Uygur 6%, well, he's always going to be 6% in that race, no matter how much time goes by. But I understand what Trump was trying to do. He could have called him one state Kasich. Who knows? Something that would have had more permanence to it. But such is the election of that era. He also had other good nicknames, of course. I mean, Crooked Hillary, that one, it's not as good as like Low Energy Jeb or whatever, but it stuck. It was effective. I mean, Crooked Clinton had more alliteration to it. Like I'm the king of alliteration. I'm always going to try to make it have that alliteration. That's my style, right? Like if I like the guy and his name starts with a CH, like Cheney, his nickname is going to be Chad Cheney, right? Like Dick Cheney, Chad Cheney, right? I mean, you got the alliteration going on. Base Bolton, Baller Bob Kagan, etc. Right? So here's the deal. Donald Trump, though, I think he realizes that he's gone down, that he's slipping. Because, of course, a couple years ago or whatever, he had little Bob Corker. Well, that was a flop. Bob Corker isn't even little. At least with little Marco Rubio is kind of short. So it kind of made sense. But, the reason why little Marco was so effective, it wasn't even that little Marco was like such a clever insult. I mean, yeah, it had staying power. The thing that was good about his nicknames is that there was this kernel of truth in a lot of them. I like Jeb Bush, but let's keep it real. His demeanor, everything, it did kind of exude a lack of energy. We all remember Please Clap, for example. So that's the evidence there if you needed a point of data there to back this up. But when it comes to Marco, I think the reason why that one was so effective was how Marco Rubio handled it, because he was caught off guard on the stage. He didn't expect that one of the other candidates there would just use schoolyard insults against him. And so when Donald Trump was like, little Marco Rubio responded with, okay, Big Don. And you're like, you're listening to this. I was listening to it and I was like, oh, I cringe. Like, again, I like Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is better than Donald Trump in every way, essentially. Marco Rubio would actually get tough on Iran. Marco Rubio would actually get tough on North Korea. Marco Rubio would actually stand up for Israel. But let's keep it real. If Donald Trump calls you little, it's not an effective comeback to call him big. Big is not in and of itself an insult. Like if he said, okay, Fat Don, okay, then there we go. Like fat's, yeah, it's kind of an insult, right? Like Fat Don. But big doesn't necessarily imply fat. Big can be huge, right? Big can be imposing. Big can be powerful. Big can be good. It can be bad, but it's usually connoted as a good thing. If you want to say somebody's big as an insult, you'd say he's fat, right? Or obese, etc. It was a flop. Now, in fairness to Marco Rubio, it was on the fly. He didn't have time to think that one out. Donald Trump had all the time to prepare an insult for him, a nickname for him. But this is the era we're living in. You kind of have to be ready to go with this stuff now. I mean, that's the case of the political discourse we have. You can say Donald Trump opened that Pandora's box, but let's say Trump never ran. Somebody else would have done it sooner or later. So this is the world we live in. So we might as well learn how to win. We might as well learn that game, because I don't want the Hawks trying to take, Memorial High Ground or whatever here and losing to a bunch of losers. I mean, you don't want to look snoring and boring. You want to get out there and be high energy, and you want to kick ass and take names. So you got to make base nicknames. That's the deal. So we're going to continue on here. So after Mike showed me that, I was like, oh man, Donald Trump's actually regretting it now. So I said, and I retweeted my old tweet. I found my tweet from March 6th of this year. And I captioned my tweet with, I called it. And so here we go. This is what I wrote back on March 6th. But I'm pretty sure I've mentioned a similar sentiment on these streams before March 6th. So for the fans out there, you may be able to find a clip from before then. So if you got a bunch of time on your hands. So I wrote, and I quote, Sleepy Joe Biden might be the weakest Trump nickname I've seen. It's up there with Low Bob Corker in terms of being snoring and boring. Trump could have gone with Creepy Joe or Stuttering Joe. Both of those are more potent nicknames. Trump really dropped the ball here. That's what I wrote. That's what I had to say. And I said, I called it. Now, here's the deal. I like Joe Biden. I want Joe Biden to win. But I'm just speaking, from a matter of style, from, if I'm on Trump's side, what would I do? If I'm Trump, what would I do? Well, I call him Creepy Joe. Stuttering Joe, it's better than Sleepy Joe, but, it's still kind of a weak name. I could have done better. Creepy Joe's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, we're talking about trying to win here. Obviously, I like Joe Biden. But if I'm advising Donald Trump, yeah, I'm not going to tell him to go with Sleepy. Sleepy's weak. Sleepy's boring. Like, you're sleepy. It's like, okay. But Creepy, on the other hand, again, the reason why it's effective is that there's this kernel of truth there. Now, I like Joe Biden, but there is a meme out there that has widespread appeal, especially to people that like Trump, namely the Trump brand of right-wingers and a lot of the Chapo Trap House, Kyle Kulinski fans, Jimmy Dore fans on the left that look at pictures of Joe Biden being like awkwardly close with people, and they extrapolate from that conspiracy theories about how Joe Biden must like to touch little kids in Comet Baseball or whatever it was, Comet Pizza Basement, Pizzagate memes, that kind of stuff. They think that Joe Biden, he's like Epstein 2.0, that sort of thing. So if you've already got people that are primed for, something that alleges Joe Biden to be acting kind of creepy, well, nickname Creepy Joe kind of works. Now, it doesn't have the alliteration going on there. I'm sure I could think up something better. But I think that with the pre-existing meme here, that a lot of people that like Trump and a lot of people that are on the left that might consider voting for Trump already think that Joe Biden is creepy. I think that the creepy, that in and of itself would outweigh any gains that you would have from having an alliterating nickname. I think it's so effective in that sense that even though there's no alliteration going on, it's still going to stick bigly, as Trump would say, right? However, this is an important point here to note, and I've said this too, and you can go back and watch the streams. I said the reason why Trump can't do it, though, unless he's a total idiot, and he might actually be that dumb to change the nickname at this point, is that if he changes it now, it's going to be obvious. People are going to remember that he originally came up with Sleepy Joe. And if he's trying to tell us he's always the greatest and he's always got the best, whatever nicknames, all this sort of stuff, well, then why did you go back on your original one? So I think it looks very weak for him to switch up the nickname. It's basically him admitting, like, if he comes out there and says, oh, yeah, we're calling him Creepy Joe now, that's him admitting defeat. That's him saying, yeah, my nickname sucked, so I've got a new one now. That looks bad. That's not good optics for Trump. So the only question here is, would the gains that he would have from a more effective nickname like Creepy Joe outweigh the embarrassing L that he would take by, he doesn't have to publicly announce that he's changing the nickname, but everybody's going to notice, be like, hey, you used to call him Sleepy Joe. What the hell happened? I thought your nicknames were the best. Don, what happened? A lot of people are going to be like, you kind of realized you screwed up there, didn't you, Donnie? So it's not going to work out too well for him. I think at this point, he basically has to commit to Sleepy Joe. And because he's Trump, because he can kind of, I wouldn't say meme his way to things anymore, like the meme was back in 2016, but at least he can say things and his fans will have to eat it up and rationalize. If I were him, honestly, at this point, even knowing that's a stupid nickname that he could have done better, I'd just come out there and say, no, man, this nickname's dope. Like, this nickname's, it's the greatest nickname, just like Trump Steaks. It's the greatest. I'm the greatest. Vote for me in 2020. He has to own it. He has to commit to it. Otherwise, he's going to look very weak. So, again, if I'm advising Trump, that's what I would say. I hope he does change it. I want him to lose. So that's my attitude. So we're going to take a look at the chat. Yeah, we got a few people here tonight. Arthur says Trump should change it to Sleepy Joe. Oh, that would be so meta. That's like a throwback to Jeb plus Biden. Oh man, that would be hilarious, man. Vise Fox says, I find it hard to get into the mindset of normies to understand what will actually be electorally effective. I wonder, do you consider neocons normies? Because I know that a lot of people would, but it really seems kind of edgy at this point in the political context we're living in. We're like some of the only people that actually have a serious foreign policy plan. So everybody else just says we're bad, whether they're Trump or Kyle fans, whatever. Oh man, Bones beautiful birdcage. Oh man, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Okay, fat ass works every time. Yeah, that's back in reference to Lil Marco calling Don Big Don. Like I call Donald Trump. I got a couple nicknames for Donald Trump. First nickname that I had made for him was Donnie Yes Sir Vladimir Trump. It's got some alliteration. Yes Sir Vladimir. That that works. That rhymes, right? Donnie Yes Sir Vladimir Trump. That was my first one, but it's kind of long. You usually want the nicknames to be pretty short. Ideally, like a one-liner, you want it to be 2 words. You want the insult, and then you want their name. So like Sleepy Joe fits that profile. Now it's a weak nickname, but Little Marco also does. Low Energy Jeb, it's a bit longer, but it works. It's a short phrase. Donnie Yes Sir Vladimir Trump, it's kind of convoluted, kind of long. People can lose track of what you're saying. So my second nickname for him, I didn't change it. I didn't say, oh, that's a bad nickname. I'm not going to use it anymore. I have 2. The second one I introduced was Big Debt Don. Well, that one, it's it's 3 words. It's not 2, but Big Debt Don, yeah, it's got some alliteration. It kind of works. It's got a ring to it. He's had 6 bankruptcies. He owes potentially hundreds of millions of dollars to the Russians. And he sits back and does nothing while the Russians pay people to assassinate U.S. troops, his troops. Pathetic. Utter cuckery, right? So I like what Arthur says. He says, or just okay fat. Yeah, that works too. Yeah, Fox says Stuttering Joe would have just come off as distasteful, I think. But Arthur, of course, notes Trump distasteful? Nah. Nah. No, oh, man. I mean, everything the guy does is distasteful. Yeah, Nicholas is here. He says Trump will probably mock stutter while Joe Biden talks during the debate. Oh, for sure. He says, yeah, it'll be childish, but his base will eat it up. Oh, definitely, definitely. The point is, like, you got to win over a couple percent of Republicans to win the election. So even if like almost all of his base still loves him, you can still win. So Samuel asks, why are these streams always at 1 in the morning? Oh, so if it's 1 in the morning your time, you're 2 hours ahead of me. You must be like Central Time, probably like Chicago, that kind of area. I am on the left coast, so it was 11:30 when I began this stream. And yeah, as Arthur points out, yeah, I worked long hours. I worked a lot. That's correct. So if you would like to change that status quo and make it so that this is my full-time job, you can go to patreon.com/superpowerbroadcasting and help make it happen. Once we get up to $100 a month, and we're getting there, I will be rolling out daily pre-recorded videos premiering to YouTube, as well as these streams airing live to Twitch and YouTube. So there's some incentive there to join the patron gang. So Fox says the average person doesn't seem very neocon-y. Yeah, that's my point. That's why I call this the era of cringe, and we need to change it. That's why this channel exists. That's why I do what I do. Yeah, Arthur says Nighthawk Gang. Oh yeah. Speaking of Nighthawk Gang, I got a meme for that. I got a couple. Check out these Nighthawks. Gang gang. Check out these Nighthawks. There's the Hawk Gang right there. Check out this hawk. Everybody, go buy his book, by the way, if you haven't bought Bolton's book yet. Mine's still en route. I will read it when it arrives. I've read some excerpts. It's amazing, the kind of stuff John Bolton talks about in there. So Samuel says this would be a good show on AM radio. Oh man, I haven't looked into radio or anything, but if anybody knows of like any neoconservative stations out there that would be interested in hiring somebody to work remotely, because I don't really live anywhere near any of the big cities where the radio stations are usually based, let me know. I'll take a look at it, see if they're hiring for anybody. Until then, though, I will keep doing what I'm doing here, owning the ISOCUX, defending the West, championing interventionism, and a heavy-handed foreign policy so that we can take back our civilization and expand our interests throughout the world and end the era of cringe and end the moral relativism and the guilt that somehow so many Westerners feel for being the best. So yeah, Anthony says, is Trump ending the endless wars? W.R. Winters says, how can you end something that's endless? Well, I have an answer to that, of course. I even did a video on it. It's called, It Only Takes a Few Purposeful Wars to Liberate the World. I believe that if the United States and the West, for example, nuked Iran and then North Korea in quick succession and liberated those systems, the enemies of America would very quickly realize that the U.S. meant business and come begging and crawling and ask what they must do in order to not be next on the chopping block. And they would begin strong reforms very quickly. Russia and China, yeah, they have a lot of nukes. You can bankrupt them. You do it by cutting off China from trade. They would lose more than we would lose. They depend on us. We don't depend on them. We can get our stuff made in India. They can't get another West to buy their stuff. What are they going to do? Get Russia to buy their stuff? Russia's dirt poor. So just blockade China, sanction the hell of anybody that violates the sanctions and trades with them, like Switzerland. And then within a few years, the communist system there goes bankrupt or gets overthrown because people are sick of being unemployed. So then you're done there. Now they're an ally. Now they're a democratic system. And then as far as Russia goes, I also have a couple videos on this. You can check out the video, how to defeat fascist Russia without firing a single bullet. And that is, we drill as much oil in Canada specifically, but other Western countries too, as much oil as possible, just unlimited amounts of oil, big oil. And we sell it on the world market, particularly to Europe, but anywhere, for literally pennies. Like, we're not even trying to make a profit. We're taking a loss. Why? Because then Russia will go bankrupt. 60% of their revenues come from gas and oil. They can't pay pensions. They can't do any of that because now it's worthless. Now the West has lowered the cost so much, or the price so much, that they can't even break even. They'll go bankrupt within a couple years. So you've taken out the two big nuclear enemies, and you've nuked the two big conventional military forces that you have to do war with anyway. Well, now what's left? Well, now the world is American dominated 100% everywhere in every corner of the world. And then fast forward 300 years, the world is the United States of America. So, or I guess at that point, just the United States. It all becomes America eventually. And then, yes, you will have ended the endless wars because now the world is the West. And there will never be a dictatorship in the history of the world again. So, and the Enlightenment will prevail into infinity. So, that is the goal. Oh, to answer this question about a horrendous stream delay, no, I don't really read the chat very much. So I'm just addressing them as I read them. I'm like maybe 4 minutes back right now, but I was probably a lot longer back before. Anthony Roberto says Joe Biden said he will bring serious, quote, consequences to Putin, end quote. I hope he makes me national security advisor, lol. Oh man, can you imagine Anthony Roberto? If you guys have seen Anthony Roberto on these streams, dude's hawkish, man. He understands it. He gets it. He understands that you don't negotiate with terrorists. He understands that you don't tell Putin that you trust the KGB over the CIA. Oh man, can you imagine? Joe Biden would get back to his hawkish days. I know that there are people out there who have argued, and I can see why they're arguing this in recent years, that Joe Biden would actually not be that hawkish, that he would kind of be a repeat of Obama, that he'd be weak on Iran and he'd be weak on North Korea. I can see the arguments for it. But, you know, and one of the big arguments is, well, he was the vice president of Barack Obama. He was like, basically, he signed on to the Iran deal, all that kind of stuff, right? The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Inaction, as I call it. However, and of course, let's not forget the doctrine of strategic agents, or as I call it, strategic procrastination with regards to North Korea. In other words, there's no strategy. It's just, let's just wait 8 years and hope the problem goes away. Oh, it didn't go away? Not my problem. Pathetic, super cringe. However, Joe Biden has a long record, a long career, far longer than Barack Obama did. And if we look back to the clips of Joe Biden in the 1990s, my dude was a hawk, man. My man's was hawkish. He was talking about bombing Iran. Can we get that Joe Biden back? That'd be based. So if Anthony Roberto was there, oh man, he could hawk pill. He could rekindle the hawk spirit in Joe Biden so fast it'd make your head spin, as Trump would say. Yeah, I like this. Bring back the inner hawk in Biden. Oh yeah, no, Biden is not like some sleepy sort of guy. Biden's got fire in him. Like, he cares a lot, right? So he's not going to play patty cakes with the Russians like Donald Trump does. Yeah, W.R. Winters says I'm catching up on the chat in reference to me. Of course. See, that's the thing. When I go on my monologues and stuff, I prefer not to look at the chat. Otherwise, it's distracting. So, but I do catch up on the chat. So if you write a comment or something, chances are, unless I've got like some very important stuff to go over and a lot of guests on or something, I'll probably read it. Like tonight, I'm reading every comment. I don't always read every comment. I probably like actually read every comment on maybe about a third of the streams. The others I like glance over, and then I find ones that are like, you know, good and stuff. So, or just such a top tier level of cringe if it's like a Froggo or Nazbol or communist or something. So. Oh man. Oh man, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. I like that. Yeah, Arthur says that would be hilarious. Oh man, that's kind of corny. I like it. I like it. Fox says, "What is your opinion on how to deal with rogue US allies like Turkey?" Well, I think it's context specific. It's nation specific. So if we're talking specifically about Turkey, I can answer that. I can even do a stream on it. I think that that's an important question. But what other rogue U.S. allies are there? Just curious. What other states would you consider to be rogue? But Turkey is an important example. They're the second largest army in NATO, so that's a really prominent example. They're not just like Liechtenstein or something. They're huge. So that is, of course, a consequential matter to discuss. So. W.R. Winter says, see your point regarding few purposeful wars, but America should always be in a state of conflict with its enemies, including terrorists and enemy states. Therefore, I'm pro endless war. Well, I'm a globalist, so I want the entire world to be part of the United States, like one country, one government. So, based in Washington, D.C. So, in that sense, there would no longer be wars between states. There would only be one state. Now, of course, a civil war can still happen, but it wouldn't be wars in the technical sense that we have right now of wars between states. Terrorism would still be a thing, but you have to stamp them out. The increased prosperity with each generation as a result of globalization and a cohesive Western democratic capitalist government would see that even the poorest of poor would still be richer than a lot of the average people that we have today. And terrorist radicalization and fundamentalism would be reduced as the standard in living rose. There would perhaps still be enemies within, even down the road. I don't think that a military solution would be necessary if the world has been one government for hundreds of years by that point. So I think at that point it would come down to elections and referendums and stuff that would decide on specific issues rather than wars. So kind of like how California and the U.S. didn't have a war over gay marriage, or how Texas and the U.S. haven't had a war over the death penalty or something, So it's all within the U.S. system. It's all seen as legitimate. You get to disagree on stuff. You have different states. But everybody still has common laws between states that you have to respect at a federal level. So if the whole world was the federal U.S. government, yeah, things would be a little bit different in Pakistan than in Texas, but you're going to have the same federal laws everywhere in the country. So whether it's Antarctica, Canada, whatever, they'd all be part of the same country by that point. Let's see. Toxa Colden asks, would you be open to doing a stream with a Ukrainian blogger from Canada? He's an older gentleman who moved out of the USSR and lived in Israel too. No guarantee that he'd be interested. Yeah, I'm open to the idea of it. It would really depend on a few factors. I need to kind of know who he is, what his worldview is, that kind of thing. So, however, I do have an email. So if you go to my channel, you can contact me at my channel email and get in contact with me specifically about this rather than doing it over the chat, because it can get kind of awkward and everything. So Olympian God writes, won't be able to watch the stream because I'm doing physics exam that's due at 11:30 a.m. So peace and bye. Oh yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. We're wrapping up the stream very shortly. So Fox says Hungary is potentially roguish. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I did do a video on Hungary from about 8 or 9 months ago. Got taken down. I got spammed by a bunch of TradCon pro Putin fanboys who are big fans of Orban, and they massively flagged the video. So I will have to re-upload it. So Hungary went away rogue. Oh, absolutely. Orban is to Putin as Darth Vader is to Palpatine in the Star Wars movies. He's basically a yes man. It's sad, and the whole thing is this psychological obsession to try to own his former patron. In the case of Viktor Orban. Now you might ask, what former patron? Here's the thing that's insane. If you look into the history of Viktor Orban, how he got big, who paid for him to go to school, where he went to school, guess who it was? This sounds unbelievable, but you can look into it. It's true. George Soros, Viktor Orban, this radical authoritarian wannabe Putin, an admirer of fascism in Hungary. He was one of George Soros' prodigies at the Central European University. He was a liberal, open societies kind of person. Kind of amazing, kind of interesting. So George Soros lives rent-free in his head way more than in Alex Jones' head. I mean, this is insanity. So W.R. Winter says Saudi Arabia is technically a rogue U.S. ally. Wait, how are they rogue? They're an excellent U.S. ally. Back in the 70s, they literally sanctioned and prevented U.S. access to oil, and were trying to blow up Israel. Now they work with Israel, and they help the U.S. keep oil low to screw over Russia. They're helping against Iran. They're reforming every year in a more liberal direction. They help U.S. security interests in the region. They help stability in the region, in contrast to Iran and Russia promoting instability. Saudi Arabia on a foreign policy metric has been excellent. Their domestic policy, it's a shit show, but it's better than Iran. They're at least reforming in a positive direction. Iran is going further into the darkness. So is Russia. Russia recently legalized wife beating, that kind of stuff. So W.R. Winter says Soros, Illuminati confirmed. Oh man, we're gonna have to wrap this up right now. We went a fair bit longer than I was intending. I'm kind of busy tonight, so I will see you all tomorrow. I will be here at some point tomorrow night. I'll schedule it, and I hope to see you all again in the chat. We may have some guests on tomorrow. Might bring on some Hawks. We'll see. So we'll have some new stuff come up. Like I said, I called it here. I called it. I knew that Donald Trump was going to realize that his nickname, Sleepy Joe, just didn't cut it. Meek and weak, bunk and junk. So snoring and boring. So see y'all later. You can, before you go though, definitely be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet. Click the link in the description below. Go follow this channel over on Twitch. We're coming up on 50 followers. We got to get 50 followers to get affiliate status over there. And of course, don't forget, if you want to support this channel financially, help us get up to $100 a month, you can go to my Patreon. That's patreon.com/superpowerbroadcasting and help make it happen. As I said, once we hit $100 a month, I will be premiering daily pre-recorded videos to YouTube, in addition to daily streams airing live to YouTube and Twitch. So with that, thank you for being here, everybody. Have a good night.